Hi everyone, Charles with you here on a Tuesday morning. Well, here's a news story from a couple of weeks ago, and I would think that many of you missed this, so I'm going to talk about this a little bit. 5 years ago, if I would have said that a bishop would deny someone communion because they were kneeling, you would, me too. I think we all would have thought, oh, that's ridiculous. Something like that wouldn't happen. But yet it's come to pass. Here's a bishop in Santiago, Chile. He denied Holy Communion to several faithful who were kneeling during the Christmas Mass in Santiago Cathedral, April 18th. And if you don't believe that, there is actually a video of this. Believe it or not, I'm looking at it right now. He's telling people that they have to stand up in order to receive the Eucharist. A couple of the people... here's one guy here. Let's see what he's going to do. No, he won't take the Eucharist. He just walks away, and this woman walks away. Well, if you want to look at this, how long is this? This video is like a minute long. Now, if... Let me say, if
Francis is who I personally think he is, which doesn't make me right, and other people think this, if he is really the destroyer of Catholicism and the false prophet in the book of Revelation, all this is just going to continue until he gets to the point where he's thrown Mary out of the church, saying, I think probably saying that, Mary isn't really necessary, which Mary really is necessary because God wrote her into salvation history as a dispenser of graces. So without her, God would have had to come up with a different kind of creation. So Mary is necessary. If I would say that, you would say, oh no, something like that couldn't happen. But then 5 years ago, we all would have said, oh, a bishop denying someone communion for kneeling, Kathleen, one of our subscribers, just asked, when is this going to stop? And, I don't think it's going to stop until he gets Mary and, I believe, Jesus Christ out of the church. Now, look at this Abu Dhabi document. Is there any mention of Christ in here? No, and he's made other comments over the years. He can't, see what people find so, maybe, not only confusing, but he can't really just change the church overnight. He has to do it in stages. And, the Pope says a lot of good things, but, it's the drops of poison from Satan that we're concerned about, and that other people, there's a lot of people. And I don't mean like a high percentage of people, because I think I just read an article where like 1% or less than 1% of people on the internet, Catholics on the internet, are really aware of or pay attention to all the different kinds of things that are going on. They're more interested in, Facebook and, Instagram and whatever. I mean, it's not easy to, for all of us to follow this kind of stuff day after day. But I think we take it seriously, and I think that, we realize the seriousness of what's really going on, because we see these pieces not as things that aren't in relation to each other, but that they are in relation to each other, and there's some kind of plan going on by the Pope. He has some kind of big plan here, and I think it's to form this one world religion. And of course, this religion, quote unquote, it's not really a religion. This church or whatever, for a better, I don't know what word to use here, is just based on secular humanitarianism. In other words, the kinds of secular concerns that Francis is always bringing up, like global warming and, things that, people in common, things that, we all have in common, although I don't believe in global warming, but, most people do. So, if he's really this person, Kathleen was asking, when is this going to stop? And I don't really believe it is going to stop until he's, dragged as many people as he can into this, this new kind of church, this secular church, which he's going to, turn over to the Antichrist. Now, of course, all this speaks to the end of times, and I would suppose that many of you don't think, no, this is not really the end of times. But actually, there's a lot of evidence to indicate that it actually is. So here we have, another example of, just, what's happened to the church, what's happened to our bishops and cardinals, and, it's, and there really aren't any forces. Well, I think they exist. They're just, being quiet for, I would just say that they're, whatchamacallit, that they're cowards, and that there's no reason, no really reasonable reason why they shouldn't speak up, but yet they don't. They have all kinds of rationalizations, such as, all this will pass and we'll get back on the right track. No, the modernists and the heretics that run the church are in the majority, and that's not going to change. It's just, there isn't the force pushing back against all the heresy. There just isn't, And then, now that doesn't mean that, the Holy Spirit can't do something about this. But my own personal opinion is that God is just going to let all this happen to separate out, the sheep and the goats. In other words, he's going to allow this to go all the way to, just play, for the whole thing to play out. And then I think there'll come a time when he will enlighten people to the fact that what they're believing in and this church that they're involved with is really a false church. And in that way, give them the opportunity to return to the traditional church, or I think what would happen is, if it's a matter of separating the sheep and the goats, then they become a goat, if they want to hang on to following into this type of secular church, quote unquote. This is part of the way that God's going to separate people out in the end of time. I mean, it's the only thing that really makes any sense to me. I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense. Now you could say, well, who knows? And I mean, I certainly don't know. I mean, I'm not a prophet. Maybe after the Pan-Amazonian Synod, there won't be any more reforms in the church. He would have done what he wanted to do, and that'll be the end of it. I mean, that could be. Prophecy stands at the point in time when the prophecy is given to the world. So, prophecy doesn't necessarily have to play itself out. Prophecy can change. Chastisements can lessen. But, take a look at the world. To deny that there are prophets in the world right now calling people back to God, I mean, this has been all throughout salvation history. God sends prophets into the world when we really get off the right track. And, if we don't come back, now with Jonah, they did the sackcloth and ashes and repented, and God withheld the chastisements. But with Sodom and Gomorrah, no. You see, the chastisements are gonna come, and they're gonna come real intensely. Many people that I follow, who I believe are today's prophets, it's going to be, the chastisements are going to be really intense, such as the economy will collapse. Anyway, to the point where it will
one of everything, so that all that people have left is their relationship to God and their reliance on God, if they want to accept that, if they want to accept that. If you look at the seal in the book of Revelation, I mean, after the chastisements comes war, which people think would be nuclear war. And then there's, when there's really bad war, there's pestilence and starvation. I mean, oh boy, even to begin to think about these kinds of things is, really, just really shakes the foundation of your soul. Well, I think that's probably enough for this video. But, don't kid yourself into thinking like Mary can't get thrown out of the church, or, the Eucharist will be declared to be nothing more than a sharing of bread among individuals. If he really is the false prophet, he's got to get Mary and Christ ultimately out of this, this quote-unquote church. I hate to just say church without putting the quotes around it, because it's not really a church,
around this belief system, that he's. I mean, he's in the process of making his own belief system here. So, well, okay, I guess we'll just let it go at that. I mean, I could sit and talk about this for, I talked 15 minutes. I could really talk about this for a long time. Of course, to talk any longer, I'd have to be a little more organized. I'm just kind of throwing things out at you, just kind of talking off the cuff. But that's okay. I hope, you... I mean, it's not something that we like thinking about, but, I mean, we need to take all this seriously. It's all about our salvation, and from your beliefs comes your words and behavior. So I mean, if you really believe that it really is the end of times, it should really affect your behavior. You should pray more, go to confession every month, be more charitable. So I hope you would consider some of these things. Okay, well, if you want to watch the video, it's really a very sad thing to watch. The link's in the description box. So we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.